the shoulders of the Constitution, rule of law, and the animating principle that we are all created equal. I need to hear a hallelujah. Though I am not considered a believer by some, I still believe in the warmth of heaven come. I need the rapture I feel when my feet touch the green, green grass of home. And I know I have reached the valley of kingdom come.
I got refills for you. They're in there. Okay, take it. And there are refills. I need to hear a hallelujah as we tear down the wall in the divide between heaven and earth as tears turn to mirth. As we walk through the valley of death, and I draw my last breath. I know a rapture I feel when I touch the green, green grass of home. And I know I have reached the hollow where my ancestors roam. And when I reach that valley, I need to see you there, because we don't need a kingdom, we only need free air. And we don't seek a king, we seek the brotherhood of man. And we won't fight for bondage, as we need no king or woman. We will stand undivided, because we will raise the fallen. Good evening, everybody. This is the Hillbilly Think Tank. Spencer Keck coming at you live from here in Tunnel Hills, where we know that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is what makes everything worthwhile. And y'all, we're here to talk about how this week, after more than 100 days of war, the United States and Iran reached a deal
to stop shooting. And I want to be the first to say it plainly. Thank God the killing is stopping. That's real, and that's good, and I won't pretend otherwise. But Hardin County, Kentucky is my home, the home of Fort Knox, and one of the most veteran-heavy places in this entire country. The people around me are the people who get sent. So I'm going to ask the question nobody in a campaign ad ever asks. 100 days of war, and what exactly did the people who do the bleeding get out of it? Because last time on this show, I told you what Eisenhower said about the military-industrial complex and how we had to stay vigilant against it. Now, I'm here to tell you that before him, there was someone who laid it out even straighter. It was a two-time Medal of Honor Marine named Brigadier General Smedley Butler, who called war a racket, and that people who profit from it are almost never the people who pay for it. Tonight, we test that thesis on a war that ended this week. Let's go. Coin-operated democracy, part 4. Over 100 days. What the deal actually says. Here are the facts, straight. The war started at the end of February when the United States and Israel launched strikes against Iran. Shortly after, Iran effectively shut down the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow channel that about a fifth of the world's oil moves through, and also our fertilizer. And the U.S. answered with a naval blockade. For 3+ months, it ground on and on and on, with a shaky ceasefire in April that kept on breaking. Now, then, this past Sunday, with Pakistan mediating, the two sides announced a deal, a framework, a memorandum of understanding to be signed in Switzerland. The president posted that the strait would reopen toll-free, ordered the blockade lifted, and wrote, I'm quoting him, "Let the oil flow." Now read the fine print, because the fine print is the whole episode. The deal sets up 60 days of future talks on Iran's nuclear program and its frozen assets. The president himself said, his words, "There's no rush on the nuclear question. We'll get the nuclear dust later." There is no regime change in the deal. And Iran's own deputy foreign minister called the agreement a victory. Iran had controlled that strait since nearly the start of the war, and it walks away with its government intact, its nuclear program a matter for later, and the world thanking it for letting the oil move again. And the peace is already shaking. And here's why I keep putting the word peace in air quotes. Because within hours of the announcement, it nearly fell apart, and it fell apart from the inside, from our own side of the table. Look at it. You can look at these sources such as Axios, Times of Israel, and the AP, June 14th. Israel, our closest ally in that region, and a country the mediators deliberately left out of the negotiations, struck Beirut the very morning the deal was supposed to be signed. Their stated reason was self-defense, a response to Hezbollah drones fired into northern Israel. And they have a real argument there. But the timing detonated the signing. Iran immediately threatened to retaliate. And the president of the United States was so furious that he got on the phone with a reporter and said about the leader of one of our closest allies that the man has, and I'll keep it clean for the channel in case your kids are around, no bleeping judgment. His words in public about an ally an hour before he was supposed to make peace. Sit with what that tells you. Israel's own ministers have since said they won't consider themselves bound by this deal. They kept striking. And you've got the American president publicly cursing out the ally whose strikes keep threatening the ceasefire he's trying to sign. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you who's right in a fight that old and that complicated. And that's above a magistrate's pay grade. And you know that I'm running for magistrate here in District 3. And it's probably above mine, but I'll tell you what it proves, plain as day. There are powerful players who do not want this war actually to end. And when the powerful players want a war to keep simmering, the working people are the kindling. And remember why we were told this war started? Iran's nuclear program. Well, the deal doesn't end it. It schedules 60 more days of talking about it. The international inspectors say Iran is still sitting on a big stockpile of enriched uranium and that they haven't even been able to verify how much since the fighting began. So the one objective anybody could name going in is the one thing the deal explicitly leaves unfinished. The door isn't closed. It's propped wide open. And somebody always profits from a propped open door. The fine print, they haven't shown you. And about that door, Politico did the unglamorous work of reading what's actually in this thing and found that mostly it isn't in it yet. The deal rests on promises Iran hasn't made and might never make. You can go to the sources, which is Politico, The Hill, and CBS News, June 2026. Now, strip away the fanfare, and the two sides really only agree on two things: reopen the strait, lift the blockade. Everything else, Iran destroying its enriched uranium, dismantling a single nuclear site, accepting inspections, well, it is, in Politico's words, a work in progress. None of it has happened. The big headline, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Iran pledged more than 50 years ago when it signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and again in the Obama-era deal, this same administration tore up. Getting that promise, the reporting points out, was never the hard part. So the trophy being held up is one Iran already handed us twice. And the administration wants to settle the rest in 60 days, a thing the last administration took nearly 2 years to do, after years of talks before that. One Republican foreign policy hand told Politico the most likely outcome is they never get a nuclear deal at all. They won't even show us the text. The president's own former Iran envoy, Elliot Abrahams, a hawk, no peacenik, asked the obvious question: why not release it now? Why the delay? Now, here's the part that should make every working family in Hardin County sit up. The money. A senior U.S. official floated $300 billion fund to help rebuild Iran if it complies. The vice president said on television that's the kind of money Iran could get access to. And then the president himself got on his own Truth Social and called the $300 billion fake news. So let me get this straight. The president and his own vice president cannot agree on whether hundreds of billions of dollars are on the table for the country we were just at war with, and they won't show us the paperwork that would settle it? When the people running the deal can't keep their story straight on a number that big, that's not a detail. That's the whole ball game. Meanwhile, Iran keeps every chip it walked in with. A former U.S. intelligence officer put it plainly to Politico. If the talks fall apart and we strike again, Iran can just shut that strait back down and reignite the pain, because Iran has shown it will absorb more economic suffering than we will. They kept the choke point. That choke point was theirs. They kept their material. They may get rebuilt, and the contract's still hidden from us. That's the deal 100 days of war brought. All right, now the question nobody's asking. So here's the question I owe my neighbors at Fort Knox. What was the objective? Not the slogan, the objective. If it was to end Iran's nuclear program, that got kicked 60 days down the road with a shrug. If it was regime change, that explicitly is not in the deal. If it was to break Iran's grip on the Strait of Hormuz, the thing that started choking the world's oil, well, Iran held that strait the whole war and is calling the ending a victory. 100 days of war, a global oil shock that hit every working family at the pump worldwide. American service members, our service members, put in harm's way. And at the end, the other side declares victory, and we declare the oil flow can come and again. I genuinely cannot tell you what the clearly defined objective was or what strategy connected the fighting to the finish. And when you can't name what a war was for, that's not a knock on the troops. That's a knock on the people who sent them. That's the racket in real time. The men and women who'd pay the price never got a clear answer to what are we paying for? And the deal that ended it reads like a transaction over oil signed in Switzerland. Now, see, we've got some comments here, and I will come to you guys. I promise. Hello to everyone on here. Timothy, hello. Cutler Ulu, hi. Cutler Ulu says, I'm new. Welcome. We got Tom. Tom, thanks for being on here. Hubris of the regime is astounding. Absolutely, utterly, freaking astounding. Libertad says hi. Hi, Libertad. Libertad says, do you think Trump's agreement with the Ayatollahs won't turn him into Obama plus? Exactly. All right. So now let me argue the other side. I got to play the devil's advocate because I know they're going to come at me. So, and here's why I keep faith with you and argue against myself. Ending a war is absolutely good. Full stop. Every day it kept going was more dead, and stopping it is worth something real. Reopening the strait drops oil prices, and lower gas helps every working family in Hardin County. That's tangible win for exactly the people that I'm worried about. Choosing diplomacy and a mediator over endless escalation is honestly the opposite of the forever war reflex. And people across the spectrum have begged for that for 20 years. And I fought in that forever war. And leaving regime change out refusing to own another country we'd have had to rebuild for a generation, you can make a strong case that's the single wisest thing in the whole agreement. Iran also took staggering damage in this war. By one of its own officials' estimates, hundreds of billions of dollars. So, Iran came out stronger, is my read, and a fair person can push back on it. But notice what none of that answers. Even granting every bit of it, even saying, good, it's over, you still can't tell me what the over 100 days were for, or why the bleeding had to happen before the talking. A good outcome that you stumbled into is not the same as a strategy. And the people who'd have paid the ultimate price deserved a reason worth the risk before the first strike, not a framework in Switzerland after. So now, this leads us to who pays and who never profits. Now, I promised, because I had intended to do this last night, to give you some information about aforementioned General Smedley Butler. And that's what I'm going to do, because Brigadier General Smedley Butler earned 2 medals that very few people ever get in the military. Usually, if you get them, you have to die to get this medal, and that's the Medal of Honor. He won 2 Medals of Honor in his whole career. So let's stop and look at what it was that he had to say about war. They pin a cheap strip of metal to your chest while your legs are blown off in a foreign mud hole. Your glorious military is nothing but a heavily armed collection agency violently securing the investments of Wall Street cowards. Again, this is Smedley Butler, 2-time recipient of the Medal of Honor. So that to me is worth looking at. Now, he also said, I believe in adequate defense at the coastline and nothing else. If a nation comes over here to fight, then we'll fight. He also said the only thing worth fighting for is the coastline and our Bill of Rights. And this is a man who fought on multiple campaigns on more than one continent.
War is just a racket. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to the majority of people. Only a small inside group knows what it is about. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the masses. I believe in adequate defense at the coastline and nothing else.
So here we go. This is the basis of his war is a racket. You will find, we're going to go through, he says that he was a racketeer for American businessmen for all the time he was in the military. We'll get into that.
If a nation comes over here to fight, then we'll fight. The trouble with America is that when the dollar only earns 6% over here, then it gets restless and goes overseas to get 100%. Then the flag follows the dollar, and the soldiers follow the flag. I wouldn't go to war again, as I have done to protect some lousy investment of the bankers. There are only 2 things we should fight for. One is the defense of our homes, and the other is the Bill of Rights. War for any other reason is simply a racket.
So, y'all, I'm saying this as a combat veteran. A combat veteran with 2 combat action ribbons. But I dare not speak about them for long, for my fear of my imposter syndrome. Because my father spent 18 months in Vietnam. He was in the Ia Drang. He was part of the battle. If you ever read the book, We Were Soldiers Once and Young, or if you ever watch the movie, We Were Soldiers, with starring Mel Gibson and Sam Elliott and a whole great slew of other great actors. But that was a true story of a battle my dad was in. And he was in Vietnam for 18 months. He extended for 6 months in order to become a door gunner and a crew chief. But he was with the 1st Air Cav, 1st Air Mobile. He never talked to me about his experience until I was heading off to war. And he was afraid that I was going to go try to become, as he said in his words, Audie Murphy and John Wayne like he had done. And he wanted me to know that's not what it was about. So my brother followed my footsteps. Both of my brothers did. I'm the oldest of 3 younger siblings, 2 brothers and 1 younger sister. Both of my brothers were in Afghanistan together when my brother Kelly lost his leg and hand in Afghanistan. And less than 5 years later, my dad found my brother hanging in a closet. So I know exactly what Smedley Butler is talking about here. And if anyone has a reason to say this is BS, well, sorry. I've been there, done that.
There isn't a trick in the racketeering bag that the military gang is blind to. It has its finger men to point out enemies, its muscle men to destroy enemies, its brain men to plan war preparations, and a big boss super nationalistic capitalism. It may seem odd for me, a military man, to adopt such a comparison. Truthfulness compels me to. I spent 33 years and 4 months in active military service as a member of this country's most agile military force, the Marine Corps. I served in all commissioned ranks from 2nd lieutenant to major general, and during that period, I spent most of my time being a muscle man for big business, for Wall Street, and for the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer, a gangster for capitalism. I suspected I was just part of a racket at the time. Now I am sure of it. Like all the members of the military profession, I never had a thought of my own until I left the service. My mental faculties remained in suspended animation while I obeyed the orders of higher-ups.
So when he's talking about his mental faculties being in suspended animation while he obeyed the orders of the higher-ups, if I've read a book that we're going to talk about here in a minute, he obviously suffered from shell shock, as it was called back then, PTSD, as it would be called later, today. But he came to realize who he was truly fighting for and working for. And as he said, it's the bankers and Wall Street.
This is typical with everyone in the military service. I helped make Mexico, especially Tampico, safe for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National Citibank boys to collect revenues in. I helped in the raping of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefits of Wall Street. The record of racketeering is long. I helped purify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown Brothers in 1909-1912. I brought light to the Dominican Republic for American sugar interests in 1916. In China, I helped to see to it that Standard Oil went its way unmolested. During those years, I had, as the boys in the back room would say, a swell racket. Looking back on it, I feel that I could have given Al Capone a few hints.
So this is a man who, we're going to find out, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt became president, 3 captains of industry, we're going to find their names here in a few minutes, but DuPont was one of them, and the head of General Motors was another, along with Ford. And they came to him and asked him to be their strongman. They wanted to put him in place as a dictator, and they would back him, as they had done in all these countries that he is naming. He already had a record of doing it. They thought he would surely do it here in the United States of America.
The best he could do was to operate his racket in 3 districts. I operated on 3 continents.
So,
1914, The Dead, by Rupert Brooke.
next, we're going to come back and we will talk about the book, The Gangsters of Capitalism, written by a young man who followed every single place that Smedley P. Butler talks about in his treatise entitled War is a Racket. But back to my script for today. Who pays and who never profits? So this brings me home to my own blood, because this isn't abstract for my family and it isn't abstract for Hardin County, Kentucky. My people, the Browns and the Bunches, who settled in Hardin County early, they were here during the Civil War. They came to Kentucky before the Revolution and after it. Our roots run from right here in Hardin County out into the Appalachian Hills and over into Indiana. Rural people, every branch of them. So my branches also encompass the Spencer family and, of course, the Keck family, my last name, the Elliott family that Elliott County, Kentucky was named after. And here's the thing I say with a clean conscience. My family has fought and bled and died in every war this country has ever fought. And not one of us ever profiteered from a single one of them. That's the line that matters. Fought in every war, profited from none. We were always on the paying side of General Butler's ledger, never the collecting side. Same as my brother Kelly, who left a leg and hand in Afghanistan, and my younger brother Matthew, who was with him in Afghanistan. Same as my dad, who gave 18 months in Vietnam and 40 years, came home, and Agent Orange took him, killed him. The honest characters do the dying. The racket does the billing. It has never once been the other way around in my family's 300 years on this ground. And now look at where I live. Hardin County, the home of Fort Knox, one of the most veteran-dense communities in America. We don't watch these wars on TV here. We send them, our sons and daughters. Per family, per street, per church pew, this county pays a price for every one of these wars that most of the country never feels. So when the machine runs 100 days of war with no objective anyone can name, it isn't running it on a map far away. It's running it on us. It's time, and here's the alternative. So I'll say this as plainly as I know how. It's time for coin-operated democracy to end. For Hardin County's sake, for Kentucky's sake. And I don't just mean stop the bad thing. I mean replace it with a better thing. Because tearing down without building up is just more cynicism. Here's the alternative, and it's as old as the hills. Mutual aid. Neighbors using our shared precious resources to build each other up. Roads that connect us. Emergency medical services that reaches all of us. A community where a person, a young person, can actually find what the founders promised. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness right here without having to leave or to enlist to find it. That's the whole point of the machine.
An update from the Wave Storm Tracking Team has arrived.
Every dollar and every drop of blood spent on a war nobody can explain is a dollar and a life not spent building something real at home. My papa understood that. Dr. Alex Spencer didn't extract from his county. He built it. 6,000 babies delivered without losing a single mother. A lake, Cave Run Lake, built for the farmers, hoping that they would be able to sell their farm goods to the tourists. A festival for the artisans that he supported when my mama, Charlene Spencer, came up with the idea of the Morgan County Sorghum Festival and traveled all over this state to bring in the artisans to go to that festival. The first of its kind in Eastern Kentucky and Kentucky. That's mutual aid with a country doctor's bag and his wife right by his side. That's the opposite of racket. So we're going to bring it home here after we look at a little bit more of what General Smedley P. Butler did with his reputation, because he had an amazing reputation. You don't reach the rank of two-star general, major general, and get 2 medals of honor without having an amazing reputation. There are Camp Butlers all over the Marine Corps. Go to Quantico, you'll find something named after him. Go to places in the Marine Corps. When you see Camp Butler or anything named after Smedley Butler, now you know the person that they are honoring. So we're going to look at the book that I told you was phenomenal and changed my whole view of war.
An effort to topple the U.S. government in the past. It was 1934. Some of the nation's most powerful bankers and business leaders plotted to overthrow President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in order to block the New Deal and establish a fascist dictatorship. The coup plotters included the head of General Motors, Alfred P. Sloan, as well as J.P. Morgan Jr. and the former president of DuPont, Irene DuPont. The men asked the celebrated Marine Corps officer, Smedley Butler, to lead a military coup. But Butler refused and revealed what he knew to members of Congress. This is a clip of General Smedley Butler speaking in 1934.
I appeared before the Congressional Committee, the highest representation of the American people, under subpoena to tell what I knew of activities which I believe might lead to an attempt to set up a fascist dictatorship. The plan as outlined to me was to form an organization of veterans, to use as a bluff or as a club at least, to intimidate the government and break down our democratic institutions. The upshot of the whole thing was that I was supposed to lead an organization of 500,000 men, which would be able to take over the functions of government. I talked with an investigator for this committee who came to me with a subpoena on Sunday, November 18th. He told me they had unearthed evidence linking my name with several such veteran organizations. As it then seemed to me to be getting serious, I felt it was my duty to tell all I knew of such activities to this committee. My main interest in all this is to preserve our democratic institutions. I want to retain the right to vote, the right to speak freely, and the right to write. If we maintain these basic principles, our democracy is safe. No dictatorship can exist with suffrage, freedom of speech, and press.
At the time, Marine Major General Smedley Butler was one of the most celebrated Marine officers in the country, having played key roles in U.S. invasions and occupations across the globe, including in Cuba, Nicaragua, Puerto Rico, Haiti, Mexico, and the Philippines. But Smedley Butler later spoke out against U.S. imperialism, famously writing, "War is a racket. It always has been. It is possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious. It is the only one in which the profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the very many." Butler said. We're joined now by the award-winning author Jonathan Katz, author of the new book, Gangsters of Capitalism, Smedley Butler, the Marines, and the Making and Breaking of America's Empire. Also the author of The Big Truck That Went By, How the World Came to Save Haiti and Left Behind a Disaster. Welcome back to Democracy Now!, Jonathan.
All right. So I recommend anyone, if you want a good read, I recommend reading The Gangsters of Capitalism. Now, why does this matter to Hardin County? That's going to be our outro. All right, let's bring it home. We know that a magistrate can't end a war in Iran, and that's what I'm running for in District 3 here in Hardin County. So a magistrate can't end a war in Iran. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. But a magistrate sits on the body that decides whether this county's resources get used to build us up. The roads, the emergency medical system and services, the infrastructure, the support for veterans who live here in numbers most places can't imagine. The same instinct that asks, what was this war for, is the instinct that asks, what is this county budget for? And answers for the people who live here equally, with nothing skimmed off the top for the connected. I come from people who paid for every war and profited from none. I'm asking to keep serving on that side of the ledger, the building side, the healing side, the Dr. Spencer side, at the level closest to home. Now, 100 days of war ended this week, and I'm glad. But I'm from the county that pays, and I will never stop asking the question the racket hates. Who paid, and what did they get? It's time to spend our blood and our treasure building each other up instead. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That was always supposed to be the deal. Let's bring it home. I'm Spencer Keck, your neighbor, your doc, running for magistrate, District 3, Hardin County. This is the Hillbilly Think Tank. Come meet me at the Magistrate Candidates Kickoff Party at Freeman Lake this Thursday at 6. Call or text me at 270-872-3732. Find the show on YouTube at the Hillbilly Think Tank and the campaign on Facebook and Instagram at Spencer Keck. Stay united, y'all, and we'll never fall. Remember, everyone deployed. And everyone, bless your corazón. Doc, out.
Standing for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Built upon the shoulders of the Constitution, rule of law, and the animating principle that we are all created equal. I need to hear a hallelujah, though I'm not considered a believer by some. I still believe in the warmth of heaven come. I need the rapture I feel when my feet touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I have reached the valley of kingdom come. And when I reach that valley, I need to see you there.
as tears turn to mirth, as we walk through the valley of death, and I draw my last breath. I know rapture I feel when I touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I've reached the hollow where my ancestors roam.